let's begin to recognize that you, right now, need to work on courage every day. There's a word that we use today that has changed. It's the word virtue. If you ask somebody, what does virtue mean? Well, that's what dads do when they say no to their daughters dating some of these guys. They're protecting their daughter's virtue. And that's the kind of way we would use the word in modern vernacular. But that's not what it meant in the ancient world. And what it meant in the ancient world needs to be woken up in our hearts and in our lives. The word virtue, it means excellence of character, excellence morally, excellence physically, excellence mentally, excellence in business, excellent at all that we do. And so whenever you would mention virtue, or you'd never question someone's virtue, it literally meant these four things in the ancient world, in the Greek world, the Hebrew world. It meant courage. To be virtuous meant to be temperate. There's a word we don't use anymore. It meant justice. And it meant wisdom. Those four things. They were crucial, and these guide us. They are the compass for our lives in every situation. Virtue will guide you, and it's something that God is. It's something that is reflected all through the Word. The aspects of these four show up in the fruits of the Spirit. They show up in what you add your faith to in the book of Peter. They're seen all through the stories of the Old Testament and the New. You see, courage needs wisdom. Or are you going to have a guy being courageously stupid? Courage. When you look at these four, the justice, it shows you what to be courageous about. Justice for all, fairness for all. These are crucial issues, and they all protect the other. To do right things always takes courage. Just as discipline is impossible without wisdom. Otherwise, how do you know what to discipline yourself around? One lady said to me, my daughter is so undisciplined. There's not an ounce of discipline in her. And she was giving up. I said, actually, I know your daughter. She's incredibly disciplined. What? What are you talking about? Have you seen her makeup? She knows her colors. She knows makeup. She puts it on beautifully, amazingly. She's disciplined in the morning, in the night. Discipline is everywhere. But what do we discipline ourselves in is what wisdom shows us. And so we've got to understand these four, and we've got to embrace them because they're all through the Bible. And other religions and other groups of people, they loved these because all truth is parallel. If you want to play the harp really well, play it daily. If you want to be a soccer player, a really good one, play it daily. If you want to be a builder, learn to build daily. If you want to live with virtue, practice it daily. We think courage is something that once in a while it's going to be called to you that, there'll be one moment. You were created for such a time as this. And I believe that. But when I study people in the Bible, I noticed that they practice this kind of virtue every day. People think that David just jumped up and discovered, I have courage, and killed Goliath. No, he was killing bears and lions as he served his father in protecting the flock. Daily, he would worship God. Daily, if something came up, he would take it out. And in your life, if you want to live a life filled with this virtue that God intended you to live with, see, I wasn't born with it. You're not born with these things. They're developed. They're developed. And you develop these daily. So we've got to understand this virtue is not a singular event. So let's begin to recognize that you, right now, need to work on courage every day. Every day. Do what others might not think you should be doing. There is nothing that a courageous person has done on this planet that some peanut gallery wasn't saying, don't do that. That's a wrong thing to do. Who do you think you are? You think, just wah, 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 wah. Or it wouldn't be courage. Why would you need courage if there's nothing courageous to do with it? Courage is something you can work at every day. Wisdom is something you must learn to listen to as it calls out to you every day. Living this balanced life, knowing which move to make as you don't let the pleasures of life destroy you, as you're temperate. As justice is important, as that everybody around you is looked after, and you'll jump in there for the underdog in a second. A couple of weeks ago, the story was told in one of our cities, the lady being raped on a public transit, and people just stood and watched and did nothing. I'm talking about justice. It says stand up, and it might take a stabbing. You might get beaten up a little bit, but you can't let a woman be raped. Are you kidding me? Stand up for justice. Stand up with temperance. Use wisdom. But courage is such a crucial thing in this life of living our lives with virtue. Leo Tolstoy says, there is no deed in this life so impossible that you can't do it. Your whole life should be lived as a heroic deed. There are unlimited opportunities every day at work, at home, everywhere to live with courage, to live with temperance, to live with justice, to live with wisdom. And you need that because your kids ain't going to do what you say. How many of you here right now are going, man, I didn't do anything my mama said. I didn't do anything. Listen, we didn't do what they said. We did what they were, the culture of them, what they stood for, bravery. This issue of courage has got to be transferred into the next generation. Teach them whatever you want. We work in the jails, and we love the men and women who are with us today who found new life coming out of prison. But when you simply bring education to a prison, all you've got is better educated prisoners who, when they get out, can break the law in an even better way. There's got to be this heart change, this Jesus in our lives. And when we do, something takes place on the inside. And we've got the wrong look at Christians. We think Christians are these little hippie-looking guys with long, precious brown hair and a little bit of dress and some happy beads and big, precious moments, eyes and peace. Bless you. And that is not what this faith is talking about. It's talking about courageous leadership. It's talking about you and I living our lives in such a way that people are inspired by us. And it doesn't take some great big thing for you to do. It just takes make every decision, understanding that what decisions I make today are forming my kids' future. Make the decisions you make today are causing people around you to respect you or to follow you. You are either gaining an influence or you have none. Now listen to me close. You can have stunning, phenomenal influence on the people around you if you'll practice this one message I want to share with you today. Anytime the church is quiet, we pay for it. Anytime parents are quiet around school boards, around neighborhood ideas, anytime we are quiet in a democracy, anytime we are quiet, it doesn't do anything good for us. People have learned who are courageous, they do what needs to be done. They speak up and say what needs to be said. They act in a way that protects the vulnerable and the hurting. They recognize, according to Psalms 127, that you and I are watchmen on the wall. What is that? A watchman on the wall protected a city. It protected a country. It protected the way of life that had been built. We can't be silent. When you do things that others can't do or won't do, then there's courage involved. Otherwise, it's not courage. You have to be braving something for it to be courage. Still, courage remains hard to define. We know it when we see it, but it's hard to really say what that is. It's like this rare gem, this beautiful gem that needs to be examined from all sides, every facet. Because one person might think that, courage is the champion in the boxing ring. There's so many different facets of courage in everyday life from the moms and teenagers and kids. Winston Churchill is one of my heroes. One of my heroes. As a child, they said he had unloving parents. Didn't reach out and love him. It took him courage to get up and live anyway and not use that as an excuse to simply not be temperate, but to live balanced. It took courage to ignore the teachers who thought him dumb. As a war correspondent, he was captured and at the risk of his life took an escape. It took guts for him to run for public office and to put himself out there. It takes courage to publish as a writer when everybody gets to read what you think. He changed political parties. That took courage when everybody was talking about him. To enlist in World War I, then to be outed politically and no longer popular. He stood alone when he got back in against Nazism. And he began the speeches of about his finest hour. The prime minister before him in the UK then, he literally got up and said, we must negotiate with Hitler. He's a reasonable man. And yet in the heart of this leader was a knowing that we must stand. A knowing this is not a person to negotiate with. This is a person to prepare for war with. His speeches say things that inspired people. They went by radio all across the aisles there. It was like, we will fight him in the cities. We'll fight him on the water. We'll fight him in the air, and we'll fight him on the lawns. We'll fight him in the fields. We'll fight him we're going to fight with the front. He just went on saying, we're never going to give up. Why? Because there is no plan B in that situation. You get up and fight till you win. This is what we need to understand as believers and followers of Christ. And that every day, practice courage. Every day, recognize I should have spoken up there. Every day, it should be, what's wisdom in this? And as you practice these four, you will become somebody that can influence others. Rosa Parks, an amazing black woman who got on a bus and became famous for where she sat when they said she couldn't. Her life wasn't a one-time courageous act. She lived every day under this tyranny. She lived every day doing the things that began to push back until freedom came, and she was a part of it and is literally in history because of what seemingly is a little thing. She sat in a chair and changed history. It doesn't mean you got to get up and fight. It doesn't mean you got to get angry. It doesn't mean you have to have so much of an education no, every day history is written with people. Their blood, sweat, and tears. It's etched in eternity by the quiet endurance of courageous people who stand up for something or sit down for something, who fight against something, who risk, who speak up, who tried, who conquered their fears, who acted with courage. We need to understand all of us are called to live our lives with this virtue. All of us are called to get up and to speak.